Author Gwendolyn Brooks writes, "We are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond." What makes you feel brave? Is it possible to be brave and still maintain a degree of vulnerability? I've seen evidence of great bravery this week. I've witnessed great vulnerability alongside of great bravery, and it gives me hope that not only can vulnerability accompany bravery, in order for love to flourish, vulnerability must accompany bravery. These days in our house, we often find ourselves competing for physical space in which to hold virtual meetings on various devices. Therefore, it is sometimes impossible not to overhear what each person in the house is working on or working out. My wife is a public school teacher, serving kindergarten through second grade children with special needs. Here's a shout out to any and all teachers figuring out how to lead classrooms through this shutdown, this public crisis, and this new world of virtual learning. You deserve a Medal of Honor, or at least decent pay and a whole lot of respect. This week, with the help of a translator, Katie was on the phone with one of her students. As part of her new weekly protocol, she also checks in with each family, the parents, the siblings. In one particular family, both parents are working. They work full-time packaging pre-made meals for a factory supplying food to local stores. Mom reported that she chops vegetables from early morning until late afternoon each day. When she gets home, she is exhausted, and the last thing she wants to do is prepare dinner or sit down and help her 6-year-old twins or 12-year-old son with their homework. It was vulnerable for this mother to tell her daughter's teacher that her only wish was that school would reopen. It was vulnerable for her to break down when she was asking if there wasn't some way someone could come and take her kids for a couple hours a day when she gets off of work so that she could rest. Every day, devoted parents get up, feed their children, go to work, come home and do the homework, give the bath, engage playtime and extracurricular projects, and then collapse into bed only to wake up the next day and do it all again. For this family and thousands like them, there is no respite in sight, no summer school plans or camps until maybe early August, if even then. Where does their strength come from, I wonder? What sources that kind of bravery and vulnerability? Does it come from God? What kind of God allows for such struggle in the name of love? Some years back, Barbara Brown Taylor wrote a book called God in Pain, Teaching Sermons on Suffering. In it, I found this quote. Disillusioned, we find out that God does not conform to our expectations. We glimpse our own relative size in the universe and see that no human being can say who God should be or how God should act. We review our requirements of God and recognize them as our own fictions, things we tell ourselves to make ourselves feel safe or good or comfortable. Disillusioned, we find out what is not true, and we are free to seek what is, if we dare, to turn away from the God who was supposed to be in order to seek the God who is. Very dear friends of ours, whom many of you have met, Kate and Jean and their daughter Julia, live in Oakland, right off the Keller exit on the 580 freeway. Julia comes to Camp Cazadero every week, so some of you have met her there. Kate and Jean also come to church sometimes. Our families met long before the girls were born and have become fast friends ever since. We've watched Julia grow up alongside our daughter, Ellie. The girls are 5 months apart. Julia is passionate. She's artistic. She's deeply spiritual and very insightful. She always has been. There's a fierceness to Julia. She was born with that trait, although I think it's safe to say that growing up in a loving and nurturing household has encouraged her to hone in on that skill, to express it, and thank God this week to act on it. It was a sunny Monday afternoon, and Julia was on her bed engaged with a Zoom meeting. And she heard 2 men burst through the front door and into the living room. It was clear that one of them was armed. They were apparently fleeing a drug deal that had gone wrong and being chased by 3 other assailants. It became clear to Julia's mom, Kate, that these were young men in a heap load of trouble. They were frightened and looking for cover more than they were looking to hurt anyone, but we all know when guns are involved, accidents happen. They looked for places to hide themselves. One squeezed into the coat closet while the other headed for Julia's bedroom. Our fierce young Julia slammed her door and braced herself against it. The man pushed and pushed, but Julia held her ground. Julia held her ground. And before long, the coast had cleared and the 2 men ran back out the front door and down the street. Later, Julia told her mother, Kate, what she overheard her saying to them as they ran out of the house. She said, "Be safe, and God be with you." The psalmist writes, "In you, O God, I seek refuge. Do not let me ever be put to shame. In your righteousness, deliver me. Incline your ear to me and rescue me speedily. Be a rock of refuge for me, a strong fortress to save me. You are indeed my rock and my fortress, for your name's sake. Lead me, guide me. Let your face shine upon your servant. Save me in your steadfast love. My experience of these past 2 months is that grief and disaster bring out the best in some people and the worst in others. Jennifer Gray, who runs the disaster relief group Rebuild North Bay, said in the first week of the shutdown that in responding to crisis, there are 3 kinds of people to watch for. People who need help, people who want to help, and people who will take advantage of the situation. In another book called The Preaching Life, Barbara Brown Taylor writes this: "For those willing to keep heaving themselves toward the light, things can change. What has been lost gradually becomes less important than what has been found. Curiosity pokes its green head up through the asphalt of grief and fear, and the unknown takes on an element of wonder as the disillusioned turn away from the God who was supposed to be in order to seek the God who is. Every letdown becomes a lesson and a lure. Did God fail to come when I called? Then perhaps God is not a minion. Did God fail to come when I called? Then perhaps God is not a genie. So who is God? Did God fail to punish my adversary? Well, perhaps God is not a policeman. So who is God? Did God fail to make everything turn out all right? Perhaps God is not a fixer. So who is God? Over and over, my disappointments draw me deeper into the mystery of God's being and doing. Every time God declines to meet my expectations, another of my idols is exposed. I am now and will perpetually be perplexed by that instinct to take advantage of others when the chips are down. The only assurance I can offer is that there are far fewer of those folks than there are people who are willing to step up and step in to cooperate and share and sacrifice. It occurs to me that both those who need help and those who want help have something deep and important in common. Both roles require a kind of willingness to be vulnerable. Both roles require a certain kind of bravery. When we see love being exchanged in the giving to the giver and the giver to the one in need, love shows up when both bravery and vulnerability are present. Perhaps that is the truest God we know in the face of this pandemic. We all have good days and bad days on this emotional roller coaster that is playing out all around us. May we continue to notice the presence of God in our midst. No matter who we are or what adversities may come our way, may God's face shine ever upon us and cradle us in steadfast love, as we seek to be the hands and feet of love in this complex and wonderful world. Amen. So go answer your calling. Go and fill somebody's cup. And when you see an angel falling, won't you stop and help them up? 'Cause we are each other's angels, and we meet when it is time. We keep each other going, and we show each other signs.